What's happening, geeks, and welcome to a brand new episode of Cosplay Chris Create. Now, for some of you that have been following me, I've just recently built a Batman utility belt. Now, this utility belt is based off the Dawn of Justice look, the bat suit worn by Ben Affleck. It's not exactly 100% accurate, but it bears a resemblance to it. Now, this is going towards my brand new updated bat suit. It is going to be very Ben Affleck-esque, obviously not 100% accurate. It's going to have my own little spin on it. Now, what this video is all about today is making a utility belt on a budget. This utility belt in particular cost me around $250 to make. All up, this utility belt cost me about $250 to make. And if you're wondering why that is so expensive, that's because there were molds involved. I had to make silicone molds of the pouches, the buckles, so that really adds up in the end. But then I thought to myself, what if I could make the exact same belt or something similar, for example, my own design on a shoestring budget? And that's exactly what this video is all about. It's stuff you can get from your local hardware store. In my case, it's Bunnings. If you're in the States, it's Home Depot. Now, like I said, this belt cost me about $250 to make, probably the better half of $300. The belt I'm going to show you how to make today will probably cost you at the absolute maximum $130 to make. I do know a lot of artists out there charge $200, $250 for a utility belt, and most times out of 10, it is solid urethane rubber. When you have a solid piece of urethane rubber that is a utility belt, that can weigh you down and become very heavy. I'm not gonna lie, that utility belt that I made for $250 is very heavy. Reason being, the pieces are resin. They do have a foam core in them. They are still heavy nonetheless. What I'm gonna be showing you today is to make something cheaper and also lighter. That's going to make things easier with your bat suit. So of course, with that, let's get started. Okay guys, these are the main basic materials I'm going to be using to create our Batman utility belt. Now you're probably looking at all this stuff and thinking, what the hell has he got in mind? So we'll go through it bit by bit. We've got 3 pieces of balsa wood, and I'll just get this angle here. So we've got 3 different thicknesses. This thickness here is going to be for the pouches, the cartridges that go around the utility belt. This will act as, or appear as, to be the top of the pouch, like the lid. And this will be for surface detail, and you'll understand why I need a really thin piece of balsa wood like that. Next up, this is a blank tool belt that I got from Bunnings. This cost me $15, and this is going to be the base of our utility belt. It's adjustable, so just got the clip like that. Just adjust it there to your liking. So everything will attach onto that belt, and I'll show you how we're going to attach that in the rest of the video. Now, of course, the buckle, the centerpiece, the thing that really sells a Batman utility belt. This wooden piece is actually a decorative piece, again, from Bunnings. I don't know what you'd call it. I get that to focus. I think it's like, you know, a corner piece or something you put on a banister. Now, if you're wondering, well, Chris, you know, you got to put a bat logo on there and it's going inwards. That's okay. That's what that thin piece of balsa wood is there for also. And of course, we're going to need a bat logo. This thing I got off eBay, this is just a car decal. I think it cost me $2.40. It feels like plastic reinforced with metal. So it's got a sticky back, but we're also going to be using Loctite glue to secure it to the front of the buckle because we don't want this thing going anywhere. So these guys are going to be attached to the buckle. In this section here, actually no, sorry, I lie. We're actually going to be turning them around like that, so they fit perfectly with this display piece here. We're then going to be riveting the other side to the tool belt. Pretty genius, huh? Now for the little canisters, we have some cheap little LED torches. They don't have batteries in them. Just from the $2 shop, even though they cost me $4.95 each. These are going to be primed and spray painted to match the rest of the belt. They're not going to be left black. I want this belt looking very traditional, you know, gold, Batman, old school. These are ID. If you've got an ID at work and you can't be bothered taking it off each time to swipe on, swipe off somewhere. The only thing I'm using on this whole piece are these clips. I, for the life of me, can't find these clips individually by themselves in a pack. So I bought 4 of these things off eBay. They cost me $1 each. I don't mind paying that for these clips. I will then transfer said clips onto said canisters / LED torches that are just gonna slot in place on the actual tool belt. And that's pretty much it, guys. These are the basic materials we're going to be using. Of course, excluding spray paints, adhesives, fillers, and whatnot. So first up, we're going to do the buckle. So that means cutting out a piece of the thinnest balsa wood, gluing it over the top here, and we're then going to be placing the bat logo in the middle of the buckle. So let's get to it. Okay, now unfortunately I forgot to turn the microphone on, the external microphone on the Canon 70D, so there was no audio with these clips coming up. So I'm just doing some commentary now. There was some important information I had in these clips, but well. Now, as you can see, the first step, and like I mentioned before, is we got to cover up that unsightly hole in the wooden panel just by using the thinnest piece of balsa we have. And there's my very, very fine focusing skills. Now we're just going to cut it so it fits up evenly and the symmetry is perfect with the actual centerpiece itself. I'm just getting a mounted ruler schmagegi there. I forget what the measurements were, but look, if you guys are going off something similar, you know, leave it to your own devices. You know, just trust yourself, measure twice, and always cut once. Okay, whew, geez, that was hard. So obviously the next step is to glue this piece down, and that's quite a bit of a challenge, and we're going to be using Loctite. Not so much as it being a challenge, but just trying to get it right and centered, because with Loctite glue it's a one take deal. You got one shot to get it right, and I got it right, and there it is. Next step is to put on the bat logo. Now what I did was very lightly, and there's the Loctite again, not focusing. What I did was very lightly with a red pen, just trace around and centered off the middle of the buckle, and just lightly drew around where the logo should go so I know exactly where to place it, because again, we're using Loctite. And there we go, the bat logo has been fixed onto the buckle, and it worked out better than I had hoped, because I have very unsteady hands sometimes, so that can prove to be difficult. So the next step is to attach the hinges to the buckle itself, and we're just going to be screwing them in the back with just regular timber screws, guys. Now I did use a red pen and just lightly mark the center of where I will be drilling, as you can see there. And I did also outline part of the bracket so I knew exactly where to put it. It is all self-explanatory, guys. Just screw them in. Make sure not to go too tight, because you don't want to damage the thread or the seal that it'll make once it's in there. Okay, so now we've got some hinges on our buckle. Now let me just reiterate why I chose hinges. It helps the belt sit more naturally around your waist when you're wearing it, as opposed to one big solid piece of urethane or whatnot. And these lined up perfectly with this wooden piece here I got from Bunnings. So you see they're all attached like so. They are not going anywhere. So what's next? Well, we've got to complement this with some lovely pouches, some lovely utility pouches, people. So again, we're just using some balsa wood, thicker balsa wood. I've marked out where I'm going to be making the cuts. These are 9 centimeters each, so just a smidge, like just a couple of millimeters taller than the buckle itself. It's just easier to round off to a whole number instead of, 8.3, because that's when it gets tricky, and that's when you probably lose a bit and they're unevenly cut. And of course, we're just going to be cutting it with a simple miter box and handsaw, making sure to be very careful as we cut along. Keep your cuts natural if you are going to be using balsa wood. As soft as it is and easy to cut, it still does chip away sometimes if you're quite aggressive with the cut. So let's get to it. Again, I was having a shocker of a day. I forgot to turn the external mic on again. So we've cut out the pouches that are supposed to look like the leather pouches that Batman has on his utility belt using our thickest size balsa wood. Next step is to create the lids, the top. And there you go, I've cut them out and just glued them on with Loctite again. It's pretty straightforward, guys. The next step, as you can see on the pouch that's lying down, there is a centerpiece that we have to put on as well. That's gonna be done using the thinnest piece of balsa wood that we have. You can see over there, yes, there it is. Very good, Chris. And again, that's just the piece cut out, Loctite, and just place it in the middle. Try and center it as best as you can. You can even mark it if you want. I think I did that actually. It just helps a lot. Alright geeks, it's a brand new day. I ran out of light and ran out of time, so I wasn't able to film the next stage in this process. So I've got the main components of the belt all lined up. As you can see, it's starting to take shape, and I'm very happy with the progress so far. So our next step, as you can see, the ends of the balsa wood are very rough, very unsightly. So what we're going to do, we're going to get some builder's bog. You got your little smoothing out trowel here. This thing is a hardener and you add it to the bog and that eventually hardens it up. So all we're going to do, if I can get that to focus, there we go. We're just going to smooth over some builder's bog over each end of the pouches. Now as you can see here, and this is a great example, there's a chip right there, and that was my fault when I was cutting away the excess piece of balsa wood here that I stuck down. A bit is chipped off, so that also needs filling, and that's great. That's a good example of why we need this filler. You don't need much of this, and you only need a skerrick of this. Once this gets mixed in with this and it activates and the two do their thing, you've got about a 3-minute working time, so you got to be quick. You need some plastic cups. I cut the plastic cups down because I'm not using much, and it's awkward when you're trying to get a paddle pop stick in there and mix it around. Of course, we've got our smoothing trowel. You want to make it as smooth as possible, because the smoother it is, the less sanding is going to be involved afterwards. And of course, some paddle pop sticks / tongue depressors. And that's it, guys. I've poured some of the builder's bog out into the plastic cup. Looks like dog poop. And with the hardener, this stuff, you only need about that much, I kid you not, and then mix it in thoroughly. And also with this type of stuff, you want to do this in a well ventilated area, because this stuff is potent. It is toxic. So this will probably last me about 2 pouches. I will have a lot left over. It's only because of my working time, and I don't want to rush through all 4 and stuff them up. So first up, these 2. All right, geeks, all pouches have been bogged and filled, as you can see. It's looking a bit raw and rough at the moment, and that's when we got to sandpaper it. So I'm going to start off with a rougher grit and then eventually go down to a much finer grit sandpaper. Now, you don't have to make it as neat as possible. It's not exactly going to be on show. This part's going to be on show. I will use the finer grit sandpaper on this surface and this surface here to prep it for priming and then eventually painting. So I'm just going to sand it now. There's no real need to film me sanding it. It's just pretty straightforward. Just make sure you neaten up these edges here. Okay, all pieces have been filled, sanded, and if you're wondering what these little holes are here, well, when everything's painted up, we're going to get these antique brass rivets and put them in here like so, just to give the illusion, that it's a little clasp for the pouch and whatnot. There's that chip that I sort of managed to fill in. Look guys, I don't want to, go to town. This is just a pretty good general rough idea of how to make a utility belt on a budget. So these are all the pieces that are to be painted. I'll show you what I'm going to be using. First off, we've got to use a primer because, as you know, balsa wood is extremely dry. So if we were to start, I'm going to be painting, the final color will be gold. But before we do that, we have to use a primer because this stuff will just absorb anything, and we need something that's going to absorb first and then eventually build up resistance and build up a coat. So for that, we're using a white Rust-Oleum primer. Now I'll be doing the same for the LED torches. I will be priming them too. I do have to go over it with some acetone though. That's where the price tag was, and it's left some sticky residue. I have taken the caps off, the actual tops. I will be leaving them black. I just figure it'll just break up the color a little. As you can see now, everything has now been prepped for priming. It's a bit of a tongue twister. For the pouches themselves, I'm going to be mounting them on wire, and I'll be taking them off one at a time to spray around it. It just makes it a lot easier instead of holding it under here, because you're going to get paint all over yourself. Even though wear gloves, you're still going to get it on your forearms. The buckle, as weird as this looks, I'm just going to hang it like this and just spray all around it, and then hang it on the clothesline. Sometimes the simplest ideas are the best, people. So that's the buckle. And as for the LED torches slash canisters for the belt, just going to be mounted on some tongue depressors in some foam, and this makes it a lot easier. Make sure if you are doing this method to space them out evenly and give yourself adequate space between each torch so you can spray all around it. Now, like I said, the primer that I will be using is Rust-Oleum Flat White Primer. Now, Rust-Oleum is a great brand, not just for primers, but for spray paints in general, because not only are they spray paints, they also act as primers. But this one is a specialty one, especially when we're going to be priming balsa wood that is very dry and very absorbent. Now, of course, give the can a good shake, and when you are priming something like this, or priming in general, you might want to make sure you just mist little sprays at a time on, keeping it about 30 centimeters away from the object. Even if it means you have to do about 4 or 5 coats, just make sure they're all nice, neat, and even. Alright guys, we've got our primer. Let's spray. Okay, all pieces have now been primed. Primer is now dry. Pretty happy with the end result. Now, I was making sure to get a nice, even coverage over all pieces. Now, for gold spray paint, we're just going to be using Dulux Spray Pack. Now, when you're spraying colors like gold, chrome, metallic, you want to make sure you give adequate time in between coats or final drying, because there seems to be a compound in it that makes it take longer to dry. In this case, it's spring heading into summer, so it's about 25-30 degrees today. My God, that dude across the road is relentless with his lawnmower. So yeah, if it's winter wherever you are, and if you are following this same method, you want to leave it for about a day, maybe even 2 days to dry. Don't touch it, because even if the slightest touch will leave a fingerprint, so that is something we do not want. Again, the same method, just quick little sprays over it, and we're going to be doing about 3 coats. So again guys, you don't have to see me spraying it. I'm just going to put the camera down, stop recording, and start spraying. And here we are, geeks. The gold layer has been completed. Overall, pretty happy with the end result. As you can see, because we're using balsa wood, you're going to get a very wood grain finish. It's not going to be pristine, but you know what? I like that. Adds a bit of roughness to the belt, especially on the buckle. You can see there, I don't mind it at all. It seems like it's almost like brushed steel, if you know what I mean. Now, if you're wondering if the pouches and the canisters look weathered, they are. I've gone ahead and weathered them already. I have left the buckle till last because I will show you how I'm going to weather it. And all you need is some black shoe polish. That's right, our good old friend black shoe polish, a brush, and some tissues. Okay guys, so like I said, just gotta get some shoe polish, put it into a small bowl with a brush. It doesn't have to be a fine bristle brush. This is pretty rough actually. Make sure you've got adequate amount of black next. We are covering quite a big surface area here, and tissues. Make sure you got tissues on standby, because as soon as you're done dabbing the shoe polish over this thing, it's time to start wiping the excess off. So let's get to it. Grab your tissues. I've got 1, 2. And I did say wipe away, but we're just gonna dab away. Very lightly, very evenly. We just want this looking as weathered as possible, yet still maintaining that gold appearance. Now, I am deliberately keeping some weathering around the bat logo, just as if it's kind of caked on over the years of use. Now you do have to be quick with this usually because the shoe polish does tend to dry quite quickly, and also because we're putting it on a wood surface and the wood's very dry, even though we do have spray paint on there. Okay, that looks pretty good. We'll just get in there. There we go. One weathered buckle. Okay guys, we are nearing completion of our Batman on a budget utility belt. So I know it seems like I've jumped ahead quite a bit, but don't worry, I will go through what I've done. I've now attached the buckle to the belt strap, and I'll just turn it over and you can see how I've done it. So again, it's not separated, it's still one entire piece. I just measured it up so it was at the halfway mark and riveted the hinges to the actual belt. And I do have a washer under each rivet on the under part, just so there's some added strength there. Now I did go ahead and take the little clasps off the ID extension things and have drilled them and attached them to the LED torches / pouches. You can see this one's on here. Now in terms of attaching the pouches onto here, because this is balsa wood, screws really wouldn't be effective on their own. So I've sanded away the back here, and what I'm going to use is just Old Faithful Loctite to attach it to the belt, and then just add probably 2 screws from the back into the pouch. And then we're pretty much done, guys. I've cut the belt so that there is still some room for people with bigger waists. So that's pretty much it. I'm gonna go ahead and, like with other certain things in this build, guys, you don't have to see me do it. It's just a matter of putting some glue on here and putting some glue on here, letting both pieces sit for about 10 seconds and whacking it on, letting it dry, and then I'll put the screws in through the back. Pouches are glued, canisters are in place, buckle is fixed. Guys, we are done. This thing worked out a lot better than I had anticipated. It is severely lighter than the belt that I'll be using on my new bat suit. Guys, if you don't want to spend an arm and a leg, I think all up this cost, I did say $130. Pretty sure in the end it worked out about $85 to $90. That's everything, like with spray paints, adhesives. I was anticipating $130 and it came in under budget, so that's pretty damn good. Now in terms of how it fits, let's check it out. Thanks very much for watching, guys. I hope you found this tutorial interesting, and I hope you were able to understand everything that I went through. If you were unsure of some things, please leave a comment below and let me know, and I'll try and get back to you as soon as I can. As always, thanks very much for your continuing support, and until next time, geeks, always remember, cosplayers do it best.